This video is almost true.
I couldn't figure out for the life of me whether you were telling the truth or not.
Did you really think that you'd get away with it?
You owe anybody any money at this point? Yes, I owe a total of about just under $1 million.
1971, author Clifford Irving pulls off the greatest literary hoax of the century.
McGraw-Hill, the publisher, has paid Howard Hughes $750,000 for the rights to his autobiography.
Have a prune, said Hughes. Said Irving.
This is an organic prune, isn't it? Yes. How did you notice it? It's the only kind I eat.
The voice, purported to be that of Howard Hughes, has insisted the alleged autobiography is a fake.
Fake.
I take it, sir, you do not know a man named Clifford Irving now.
No, I never saw him. I never even heard of him.
Don't believe a word of it, said Hughes. Said Irving.
The author, Clifford Irving, says the voice on the telephone a week ago was not Howard Hughes.
This episode is just so fantastic. I only wish I were still in the movie business.
You may no longer be producing, but Howard's the leading man in this movie. And now, this Rashomon-like tale takes a dramatic turn.
You know, there's an intriguing connection between the Irving story and the Watergate story.
I said there's a James Bond setup here that's out of the worst possible detective novel you could ever read.
This video is supported by my Patreon. If you'd like to support me and the channel, consider visiting the link below.
This is our best shot at Howard R. Hughes.
Ladies and gentlemen, by way of introduction, this is a story about trickery, fraud, about coincidence, and this detective novel is rotten with coincidence. For instance, the author of Hoax, a book about a hoaxer, was himself the patsy in a much bigger hoax by the subject of hoax that he must have been cooking up for decades.
Mr. Hughes, it's been a mystery to many people, the way you live your life. Why do you live the life of a recluse?
Well, I don't really know. I just sort of went into it, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm rapidly planning to come out of it.
Tonight we have a tale to tell, or part of a tale.
Back in 1972, one of the strangest news stories of the day was the search for the reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes.
The whole story may never be known. It includes some of the most extraordinary people you'll ever meet, and a most extraordinary person whom you'll never meet.
Several years earlier, Howard Hughes, an aviation pioneer, movie mogul, adventurer, labeled by some the most glamorous man in America, had virtually disappeared.
The story is confusing. The main character is missing. The minor characters are evasive. Not surprising, perhaps, when the kingdom at current market prices is valued at $2 billion.
Journalists around the world were hunting for him, and the tale, such as we know it, begins here in Las Vegas, Nevada, the center of his kingdom.
In what seemed a matter of days, he laid claim to the city and the state. He made Nevada his home and empire.
Of course, Hughes wasn't the rightful heir. No, that crown belonged to the mafia, names like Bugsy Siegel and Johnny Roselli. But like any great usurper would, Howard used his money to chase out the mafia, sidestep antitrust laws, buy up the hotels and casinos, and build his very own castle up there on the 9th floor of that one.
Up there in the penthouse suite of the Desert Inn Hotel, he cut himself off from the rest of the world.
And all through the long years, not a shadow was seen moving in that window. The good people of Las Vegas kept their eyes peeled, saw nothing, and believed everything they told each other. More than one bemused observer claims to have seen the whimsical tycoon at 4 o'clock in the morning, promenading this highway with no socks on and wearing, instead of shoes, a pair of empty Kleenex boxes. Do I believe that?
As far as being a recluse is concerned, that was almost necessitated by his health.
Maybe.
People pretend to be shocked and they like to be shocked, you know. It's in their nature, it's in human nature.
Lots of puzzles, only so much time to solve them. And our first puzzle, Cliff Irving over there is speaking in front of America right after the Super Bowl.
There are those who suggest, Mr. Irving,
Mike, there are those who will suggest anything. I'm sure I know what you're going to say.
that this book is a fake.
This book is a fake. It is not.
Incidentally, where does he live?
He lives in Spain at this time, Mr. Hughes.
In Spain. Doesn't claim I came to Spain to see him, does he?
No, he claims you traveled around the Western Hemisphere with him over a period of several months, late last year.
Now here's another little coincidence. a peculiar moment during the press conference.
Have you left the hotel there in the Bahamas in the last several months?
Well, left the hotel.
Hughes, and I'm looking for Howard Hughes.
Yes, sir.
Well, you're getting in a pretty touchy area there. Let's say I haven't left the Bahamas. And I certainly haven't seen Mr. Irving.
God supreme.
Enough of the truth, Clifford. We'd like to ask you a few questions.
There was a point at which you told Jack Anderson, or somebody told Jack Anderson.
Printed one of the memos, one of Hughes' original memos, back in, was it 72?
How could he have gotten that?
I'd like to know that. Well, Jack said.
Now we're talking about Hughes, but about Clifford, well, here's how Irving claimed it went down at the time. Irving announced that Hughes had decided that Irving was just the writer he could trust, not only with his book, but with the money for it. And this involved an advance of some $750,000. Irving had notes, memos, and manuscripts in what he claimed was Hughes' own handwriting. And to prove it, well, now they brought in the handwriting experts. Here, Irving should have started to feel a tad nervous. Though if Irving learned anything from his old mentor, if only by example, it was this: don't be fooled by the experts.
Did you really think that you'd get away with it?
The whole thing? Yeah, I did. Of course I did. I would never go into anything where I didn't feel that I was going to succeed.
Irving's gamble was that Howard was either too reclusive or too ill to ever come out into the public. Who can blame him? When in 1971, the same year Irving was cooking up this fiasco, a witness testified before the Miami grand jury that Howard Hughes now weighed 97 pounds, had long gray hair and a beard, and had fingernails and toenails 8 inches long.
I don't remember any scripts as wild or as stretching of the imagination as this yarn has turned out to be.
Was that even the voice of the real Howard Hughes?
It is so fantastic and so utterly beyond the bounds of anyone's imagination.
He was known for using doubles.
Obviously, the motive for Irving could be money, but...
When you last saw him, what did he look like?
Hughes is a man almost as tall as I am, 6'3".
Weighs?
Under 140 pounds.
Does he wear a beard?
Not a real one.
In the mid-30s, Howard Hughes was one of the most attractive young men in the land. He designed his own airplanes, flew them, broke aviation speed records.
It's only 1935, yet millionaire sportsman Howard Hughes has flown over 300 miles an hour.
Movie tycoon Howard Hughes must have the greatest job in the land. Each and every night, the lucky guy has to escort a different beautiful woman to a different dazzling...
More than 500,000 good souls lining the curb of Hollywood. 500,000 people are crowding the streets to get a glimpse of the stars and celebrities.
He was young and handsome and rich. Even then, he was a bit shy of publicity, a bit laconic, but it only made him more attractive.
So damn. I don't suppose I can say damn, can I?
He was the kind of character that Gary Cooper could play so well.
Howard Hughes outdoes Jules Verne's wildest dreams. Around the world from New York to New York in 4 days.
Every way you turn, there's Howard Hughes and another government agency. Every time they wanted to touch him,
when IRS or anybody...
CIA would call him up and say, lay off him, he's working for us.
Perhaps the three most powerful forces in the
Howard Hughes, the CIA, and the White House.
Right. I mean, they're not... who's more powerful, McDonald's hamburgers?
I'm not going to believe this. Just came across the wires. Howard Hughes has bought control of TWA.
I thought Mr. Hughes was flying around the world.
Apparently he did it while he was flying over the radio.
And he was brave. He walked away from a number of crashes himself.
We're going down! Howard Hughes, famous flyer and sportsman, was dragged out of this wreckage of an experimental plane he was testing. He was seriously injured. After ripping the corner from 2 homes in Beverly Hills, California, the plane finally plunged into this house.
In 1947, Hughes developed a plane practically as big as today's 747, an 8-engine troop transport made of plywood and nicknamed
the Spruce Goose.
With Hughes at the controls, it was flown only once, for a distance of 1 mile and an altitude of 70 feet. Hughes was called before a Senate committee and was accused of wasting $18 million in government money.
When Senator Brewster realized that he was fighting a battle against public opinion, a losing battle, he folded up and took a run-out powder.
It turned into a personal vendetta between Senator Brewster of Maine and Hughes.
When Senator Brewster hit the road for the backwoods of Maine, that meant the hearing was over.
It was one of the rare times he showed emotion.
Washington was too hot for him. He couldn't take it.
And just about the last time he showed himself publicly.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Quiet, please. Edith Irving.
Clifford Irving had to prove that he did.
Take three.
Look, you've known Elmer longer than anyone else on this island. Do you really believe he did all those fakes?
No, I really don't believe.
The world has yet to hear a word about Swiss banks, fake wigs, and Howard's secret police.
You are Swiss, and you know it.
I do apologize for jumping around, but confusion is the name of the game, and our players are so very skilled.
Possibly, yes.
In the meantime, though, I think it's time we introduce a key figure in this tale, Bob Mayhew.
In the discussion between Bob Mayhew and Hughes.
Bob Mayhew was Howard Hughes'
Yeah, he was
right-hand
head of the Nevada operations, and also...
Mr. Hughes had been dissatisfied with any of my operations, that he would have been the first.
Let's try that again. Roll back the tapes, and roll back to Eva's side of the story.
We're into it, but I'll tell you one thing, I'm rapidly planning to come out of it.
For her entire life, everybody told Eva McClelland that she looked just like Elizabeth Taylor. Eva, a records clerk working in Panama, was very proud of this comparison to the beautiful actress, until one day, in 1969, her Liz Taylor-like features caught the attention of the wrong man. Werner Nick Nicely was an aircraft maintenance supervisor. He was 6'3", had blue eyes, blonde hair, and was the most charming man Eva had ever met. She fell head over heels for him. They soon got married and were to live happily ever after. There was only one problem in the cogwheel of Eva's new marriage. The real Nick Nicely did not have blue eyes. The real Nick Nicely was 5'11". The real Nick Nicely was dead. Who exactly did Eva McClelland marry? Well, it's a good story.
You want to tell it?
I would, but no one would believe me. Not yet, anyway. We'll come back to this later. Let us take a break for now and visit an old friend of Howard's.
So you think you know all about Watergate, and you're fed up with it, and you don't want to hear any more about it. Well, you don't know the half of it. The main thing that we're going to cover tonight is the very important and still secret, uncovered relationship of Howard Hughes to this whole mess. They thought that O'Brien knew something that would damage them in the 1972 presidential election.
Yes, but if that were all, I think that the theory would be interesting but a little tenuous. But what intrigued me from the start, and I think intrigued Terry and the committee from the start, was that there were two targets for burglaries specified on the same day, February 4th, 1972. One was the Watergate offices of O'Brien and his staff. What first drew me is the intriguing
coincidence
that they also wanted Greenspun safe.
The President of the United States.
I think it is time in this country to quit making national heroes out of those who steal secrets and publish them in the newspapers.
Please repeat after me. I, Richard Nixon, do solemnly swear.
I, Richard Nixon, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend. the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve and protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Why the Watergate break? I know they broke in. I know they tapped phones. I know the dirty tricks. I know the plumbers. I know Ellsberg. I know all that. But the one question that defies me is why? What were they at?
I neither took part in nor knew about any of the subsequent cover-up activities. I neither authorized nor encouraged subordinates to engage in illegal or improper campaign tactics. That was, and that is, the simple truth.
The answer lies in the relationship between one of the most powerful men in the nation, Richard Nixon, and one of the wealthiest men in the nation, Howard Hughes.
The Attorney General of the United States,
John Mitchell,
ordered Liddy and Hunt to come out to Las Vegas and burglarize my safe.
Fortuitously, a day after the New York Times ran an article in February of 1972 suggesting Mr. Green's fund had in its possession a substantial amount of memoranda between Mr. Hughes and his employees.
For those who suggest that you were awed, almost overawed by Jack Kennedy's money, social grace, position.
We also know that Hughes paid D. Rebozo $100,000 in 2 installments.
No, I don't buy that. While I do not have money, and perhaps while I am not blessed with particular social grace, I fought my way up all the way.
There is nothing too far-fetched when this arrogant wealth gets together with arrogant political power.
Let's talk about power a moment. The greatest concentration of power in the United States today is not in the White House. It isn't in the Congress, and it isn't in the Supreme Court. It's in the media.
Nixon believed that the Hughes connection could cost him an election.
Like the $205,000 he gave in 1957.
Well, that was allegedly a loan.
To his brother, Donald.
To his brother,
Nixon.
Donald.
Now, the only problem about the Gordon Hughes stuff, you wonder what the Hughes people would say about that.
That loan is an important piece of evidence in all of this because I think that the record is quite clear that Richard Nixon and his associates believed firmly that loan and the knowledge of it, publicity about it, cost him certainly the 1962 gubernatorial election in California, and very possibly the 1960 election, which he lost, the presidential election, which he lost to John Kennedy.
It seems that all roads lead to Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes once told Bob Mayhew, and I quote, "Bob, there's no one in this world that I can neither buy nor destroy."
All we know is that he slipped Nixon $100,000 in 2 payments through Mr. Rebozo.
Best friend, Mr. Rebozo, whom they spent $5 million on investigating, they and Senate committees and the rest.
Good evidence to believe that that money was used not only to furnish Nixon's Key Biscayne house, but also to go into pockets of several members of the Nixon family. There is also evidence to indicate that that $100,000 was part of a quid pro quo to get the Justice Department to drop antitrust action against Hughes' acquisition of the Dunes Hotel in Las Vegas.
Tricky Dick was no different.
No matter how you embellish it or color it, it's a bribe. It's a political bribe.
Hold it right there.
The CIA, I'll get back to that.
All right. We have to pause, damn it. We'll be right back.
I really trust Cascade.
Cascade.
All right, take 2.
And when an artist has no personal vision, what can he communicate onto the canvas?
Homer's biographer is a highly gifted writer. Does it say something for this age of ours that he could only make it big by fakery?
Known Elmer for about 8 years. We met when I was broke.
Before Irving was Time Magazine's Con Man of the Year, he was once just a researcher, researching someone else's con.
I know one thing. I never offered a painting or a drawing to a museum who didn't buy it. That never refused one. Never.
Don't talk about Napoleon or Julius Caesar. You're talking about their Riviera.
Matisse' lines were never that sure as mine. He was hesitant. It wasn't as sure as mine. I had to hesitate. I had to hesitate to make it more Matisse-like.
He he's now known as the greatest art forger in the world.
Some people even say, after I did read the book of Clifford Irving about you, I like you even more than before. Today, on a sale, would bring somewhere around $15,000.
I don't admit anything, I just talk about it.
Because he's scared.
It's a good drawing.
I mean, you know, there could be a jail sentence hanging over his head.
Should we burn it?
I feel that we should burn it.
You think I should keep it for my old age? All right, I will. So I put it back in.
Exposed, a man who holds the art world to ransom.
It's profound embarrassment to them all. Elmire is a profound embarrassment to them all.
The important distinction to make when you're talking about the genuine quality of a painting is not so much whether it's a real painting or a fake. It's whether it's a good fake or a bad fake.
If you hang them in the museum in your collection, great paintings, and if they hang long enough there, they become real.
Asked Elmire to do 3 drawings for me, 2 Matisse and a Modigliani, which he did before lunch.
That's a true story.
I then took the 3 drawings to the Museum of Modern Art. The museum examined them for 2 hours and came back with the verdict that they were absolutely genuine. After that, I must say I lost my faith in the concept of expertise.
Mr. Hughes, we understand that over $800,000 was paid out in advance on the book, and supposedly some of that came to you.
That's what I've been told, and that's what we're trying to run down. Chester Davis will tell you that I have been very, very critical of him for not being able to uncover the path of these funds.
Clifford is the man who wrote Fake, an excellent book about the blanking. Who is it? The art forger. Exactly. Jeez. Elmire DeHory was his name.
On the right, Chester Davis. For 10 years, general counsel for the Hughes Tool Company. And Bill Gay, senior vice president. They claim that Hughes approved the firing of a 3rd senior executive, Bob Mayhew.
Well, essentially, he told me, first of all, that he was feeling all right, that he was in the Bahamas on vacation, and then he indicated that he wanted to personally advise me that he wanted to terminate Bob Mayhew.
That's Paul speaking, Howard's future president. Mayhew himself swears that the Howard Hughes who's trying to fire him is not the real Howard Hughes. Now that may sound crazy, but Mayhew would know a thing or two about alter egos. Mayhew, a former FBI man, a sometime CIA consultant, and perhaps the biggest spook of the 20th century, owned a security firm that may or may not have been the inspiration for Mission Impossible.
In the memorandums, in his own handwriting, show that he had always instructed Mayhew to get some kind of identification with some government agency, preferably the CIA.
Among our cast of characters, each with a story more unreliable than the last, no one finds himself more inadvertently center stage than Hank Greenspun.
You refer to Hughes's memoranda. How do you know about those memoranda? Did you see them with your own eyes? Did you get copies of them? Who gave them to you?
I'll withhold the sources.
And I'll withhold the answer, though I will say that Hank and Mayhew were good friends.
But I have the memorandums, and they're all originals.
What you're saying is that your conversation with Mr. Winnie indicated that the Hughes Tool Company also was interested in gaining information that may be in the possession of Mr. Greenspun that was related to their lawsuits that were pending. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Howard, on top of all his other troubles, is being sued for $67 million.
The lawsuit with TWA, which has hounded me for 11 years now. And now we're talking about another one, the Timeline McGraw-Hill.
He's wanted by the SEC to testify about Air West stock manipulation. He's mixed up with the Antitrust Division because of trying to buy more hotels than the law allowed in Las Vegas. He's mixed up with the CAB.
IRS, all of them.
Now this Mayhew affair. It seems to have the appearance that I'm going to spend the rest of my life in the courtroom. Until I get some of these issues put to rest, I can't really make any definitive plans.
With the fallout between Mayhew and Hughes, Nixon feared that his own secret dealings with Howard would come out as collateral damage. But neither Bob nor Howard were the metaphorical feather that broke Nixon's presidency. The cogwheel which got the entire Watergate scandal turning was no CIA agent. He was no billionaire, nor no spook. He was Clifford Irving.
What's in the book?
Everything. Hughes' loans to the president, the real amounts of the loans, the shit about BB in Florida.
Were there any witnesses to your meetings with Howard Hughes?
Yes,
any
there
other
were.
human beings? Yes, there were. Who?
You listen to me, Mr. Clifford fucking Irving. You go and
I'm
tell.
not Clifford Irving.
I'm Howard Hughes. Howard's mouth, Howard's words.
How much trouble did you have?
Never for you know, and I think also Cliff didn't in the beginning. I think it started as a joke, as an idea.
How do you think you're going to pay that off, or are you?
It made the Irvings, Nina von Pallant, and the inner workings of the publishing business all front-page news.
You know, one of Howard's alternate ideas, he said, why don't I just buy a controlling interest in McGraw-Hill?
Slowly.
To be found out to be such a liar would have been desperately deflating.
Like, I guess in a Kafka story, so you know something starts and all at once you stand in somewhere.
It was shaming. It was deflating, shaming. It was awful. I was on the train of lies then, and I couldn't jump off.
That was when the unthinkable happened, that phone call from somebody who said he was used. It started the collapse of a fraud that had lasted more than a year.
And I retreated I retreated to federal prison.
Clifford Irving was sentenced in federal court to 2.5 years imprisonment for his part in writing the phony autobiography of Howard Hughes. Irving, his wife Edith, and his researcher and co-conspirator Richard Susskind.
Could my associate use your facilities, Sergeant? Could he?
Had collected or were in the process of collecting first from the publisher McGraw-Hill, then Life magazine, then the Book of the Month Club, and then Dell paperback publishers, a sum in excess of $1 million.
I got a phone call yesterday from Chester Davis, who's Hughes' personal attorney.
Yes.
That was when the unthinkable happened, that phone call from somebody who said he was used.
Apparently, at 1 p.m. our time,
The bodiless voice of an eccentric old billionaire named Howard Hughes blowing the whistle on.
I was filled with the success of my fairy tale.
What up to that point had been a phenomenally successful con job.
Howard Hughes is going to call to speak to an intermediary by telephone.
If you'll excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom.
I never saw him. I never even heard of him until a matter of days ago.
They finally were caught and sent to prison, but only after having fooled close friends and associates of even the elusive Mr. Hughes, as well as a battery of handwriting and other experts.
The very time that Hughes was trying to kill the Irving book, Hughes was involved through Bennett in this whole Watergate affair.
You're saying the president thinks this is authentic?
How else could they know?
Nixon gets hysterical. He thinks the book is real.
This episode is just so fantastic. I only wish I was still in the movie business.
We're going to have Howard fucking Hughes chasing us. And Intel. Remember about it? They'll stab us with sodium pentothal.
He's terrified the book's been leaked to the Democratic National Committee.
What mattered is what they feared.
That's right.
I've said, Howard, speak up. Call off the dog.
Do you think Howard Hughes ever saw that tape?
I don't know if he saw it. Probably did.
So I've written him a letter to the only address that I have at the moment that I know is valid, and I've used the correct code words for identification.
Probably laughed like hell when he saw it. At least my Howard would have laughed.
Now, Irving's autobiography wasn't real, but at the time, Nixon didn't know that. So when Irving made educated guesses about the various loans paid out to the president,
Howard wants to bury Nixon, doesn't he? Because his dog isn't doing tricks anymore. And TWA and the Air West merger.
well, it played into a very real fear for the paranoid Nixon. Though we don't have to take as gospel the word of a half of a ham sandwich Hollywood movie.
He thinks they're sipping tea at the Watergate Hotel reading it right now.
Michael Drosnin, in his biography Citizen Hughes, claims the same thing. But if we've learned anything up to this point, it's that it can be so difficult to trust the account of a single source, especially when there's money to be had.
I don't suppose any disgruntled employee who was discharged has ever even come close to Mr. Mayhew's conduct.
We now arrive to one final coincidence.
As far as the son is concerned, he's never even seen me to my knowledge.
A witness testified before the Miami grand jury that Howard Hughes now weighed 97 pounds, had long gray hair and a beard, and had fingernails and toenails 8 inches long. The Miami witness's name? Peter Mayhew.
It's been printed that the testimony describing you this way came from Peter Mayhew, whose father is so bitterly contesting his discharge. Why in the world would anyone describe you this way?
In a malicious effort to discredit me.
You mentioned something about surveillance of you and the 60 Minutes crew while you were doing this piece.
In 1957, in the Bahamas, he had appointed me as his alter ego. He said, if I'm subpoenaed for a regulatory body, congressional committee, or in a lawsuit, whatever it is, I want you to be in a position to be able to convince them that you are me and that you can answer the questions for me.
All of you sitting out here on the strip of Las Vegas, your car's being under surveillance at every moment. Conversation most likely is being bugged by all this sophisticated equipment.
People who followed us. I asked Bob Mayhew if there were people for him, agents of his who were following us. And he said, really, Morley, it wasn't any of my agents. My agents are all too busy following the gayless and gay agents.
It's a group that this Chester Davis brought in here. It's called Intertel. A lot of ex-FBI agents, ex-Secret Service men, ex-revenue agents.
Mr. Hughes, there are a number of theories about why you have taken yourself out of the public view. One of these is that you fear kidnapping.
Mr. Hughes liked to lead a life of secrecy.
Another is that you are maneuvering constantly to avoid process servers and thus avoid lawsuits.
I won't deny one thing. I don't want to spend the rest of my life sitting in some courtroom being harassed and interrogated.
Like, if this sounds like a cheap B spy movie, it isn't. It's a very expensive B spy movie.
The first time I read that article about the fingernails, I said, well, how in the hell could I write my name if I had fingernails? I've always kept my fingernails a reasonable length. In other words, I'm not going to continue being quite as reclusive, as you call it, as I've been.
The Clifford Irving press conference was the first time Hughes had spoken in nearly 30 years. And it also happens to be the last.
Howard Hughes is one of those people around whom there's always going to be mystery, always. Until the day he dies and thereafter.
Here at Methodist Hospital, newsmen were aware of published reports that the body of someone called Howard Hughes was inside the pathology department.
Howard Hughes died in April of 1976.
Doctor, did the federal government ask you to positively identify Howard Hughes?
I have no comment on that.
He was unrecognizable from the heroic man of the newsreels in the mid-30s.
After this autopsy, will you be definitely certain that it is Howard Hughes in there?
Oh, I should hope so, yes, sir.
He was 90 pounds, malnourished.
He was suffering from nutritional anemia. Now here's the world's wealthiest man suffering from malnutrition.
He had broken off hypodermic needles stuck in the flesh of his arms, where either he or somebody else injected codeine until he was comatose.
Mr. Hughes, we've heard all sorts of stories about your requiring special medication and this and that. What is the real story of your personal health at this time?
Well, how the hell is anybody's health at 66 years of age? My health is tolerable, that's certain, and probably better than I deserve.
The super secretive celebrity who went all out for world fame, won it, and then got to be more famous trying for privacy. Maybe he's a loser. After all, a lady from his past once said that's part of his charm. But this lady-killing, wheeling-dealing, death-defying, life-defying mystery man supreme has a strange habit of winning somehow. Sometimes, anyway. Just at the end. Is he winning now? At the end of this story.
Mr. Hughes, one final question. Are you a happy man today?
I'm not very happy, I'll tell you that. Primary reasons is because of some of the things we've been discussing here tonight.
But for a while,
I thought of the possibility that he had faked his own death.
Irving is referring to Elmire, but about Hughes, well...
I think that if he personally came forward and dramatically said, I'm Howard Hughes for all the world to see, there would be still many, many people who would not even accept the fact that he was Howard Hughes.
Clifford Irving, reformed and exposed in the reverse order, was till just recently Howard Hughes' greatest fake biographer. But now that crown has passed from the old emperor of the hoax to the pretender.
The author and retired Major General joins us now. Good to see you, Mark. Thanks for stopping by this morning. This is fascinating.
I met Eva McClellan in 2002. And I knew her husband had just died in 2001. She said, well, Mark, there's something I want to tell you. And I said, Eva, what is that? She said, I was married to Howard Hughes. And I thought, this is lunacy. This is absolute craziness. It can't possibly be. I said, Eva, Howard Hughes died 25 years ago. And she said, that's what they want you to think.
Whether it was a conscious policy on the behalf of Hughes's people or simply luck, the press began to pick up these marvelous tidbits about Howard Hughes. That he had foot-long fingernails, that he walked around in Kleenex boxes for shoes.
Everything pointed that for Hughes's operations, he had to have total secrecy.
We haven't mentioned his most famous project. I don't think we've mentioned
the TWA loss?
No, the Glomar Explorer.
The CIA helped provide another identity for him of a gentleman who was with the CIA.
Why would the CIA give that project to a man who virtually lives in a fishbowl as far as the press is concerned?
If I had toenails 8 inches long, I couldn't walk.
Because the secret is best kept with Howard Hughes.
You've gotten in a pretty touchy area there. Let's say I haven't left the Bahamas. It seems to have the appearance that I'm going to spend the rest of my life in the courtroom. Your question was, am I happy and content? The answer is no. I'm rapidly planning to come out of it.
Do I believe that?